The hallway was pale with old light, the kind that does not illuminate but lingers, suspended like memory. The door to the storage unit opened without resistance, as if time itself had agreed to unlock it. Inside, the forgotten crime scene waited. Dust carried the scent of paper and insulation, untouched since the first investigation 19 years ago. The floor still held the chalky outline of movement, now faded into the concrete like a whisper pressed too hard. The investigator paused, not out of fear but out of reverence. Evidence once handled in urgency now felt like ghosts. A camera bulb flickered to life, but only for documentation. No spectacle, no conclusion, just slow, methodical seeing. The air tasted of fabric long sealed, and the silence was not absence but weight. In the center, where the table had once stood, lay a box with the name Elara Brynn, age 27 at the time of record. Her name had always stood out in the archive, not for tragedy, but for a kind of poetry. A life with edges too defined to fade. The investigator bent down, gloved hands grazing the cardboard lid. There were 3 forms of dust layering it. The first from the week of the event, the second from storage relocation, and the final layer from a decade of stillness. The lock had been cut back then, tagged, bagged, logged, yet it felt unopened. The lid lifted with a soft, dry sigh, and the smell of ink and sun-worn pages escaped. Inside, her journal. No bright Dacre, no scented paper, a plain leather-bound book, spine worn by actual use rather than design. The first page carried her handwriting, disciplined but with small curves, like someone who believed in restraint but also softness. No drama, just notes, daily routes, names, calm observations that now served as data points in a field of dust. The investigator turned the page. The writing grew tighter as it progressed. Not emotional, merely compressed, like someone increasingly aware of pattern. April 2. Morning routes unchanged. Man with folder again at bus stop. Possibly coincidence, but rhythm consistent. The handwriting did not tremble. It did not emphasize. A factual record of repetition. The investigator made a note, careful not to disturb the shape of the moment. Back then, the case file had leaned heavily toward random circumstance, but the journal suggested steady observation, the kind of noticing that transforms the mundane. Elara had tracked dates, times, the precise angle of a car parked across from her apartment complex, the shifting arrival of envelopes without return stamps. Yet none of it was fear. She wrote like a researcher, collecting behavior. April 17. He looked up today, recognition, no words. Minimal dialogue, even here. The investigator closed the journal briefly and scanned the room again. Dust motes drifted like slow snowfall. Elara had lived with the same measured calm now required to unpack her absence. Boxes labeled personal effects were stacked against a metal shelf. A single photograph leaned against the back wall, its frame thin and understated. Elara stood near a bookstall, wide-brimmed hat, notebook in hand, smiling slightly in a way that suggested she expected nothing, and yet recorded everything. The investigator held the photograph at an angle. Sun glare across her face, 2 blurred figures behind her, perhaps accidental, perhaps not. A tap on the door frame. Everything intact? A voice asked, quiet, professional. Yes, the investigator replied, just above a whisper, same as the file. The voice did not enter, footsteps faded, silence reset. The journal opened again, April 25. New pattern, he is not alone now. The page held no exclamation mark. No alarm, just adaptation. That was her strength, the investigator thought. She did not dramatize the world, she cataloged it. The next entry was shorter. April 27. Photo printed, keep in safe space. The investigator scanned the box again. No additional envelopes. No printed photo. Only the one on the wall. Could that be the one? If so, why was it placed outside the catalog box? A thin file beside the journal held recorded statements from that era. Typed. Stark. Words captured like specimens pinned behind glass. The investigator remembered reviewing these back then, rushing, chasing lines of probability that now felt too linear. One page stood out. Witness statement, bookshop owner W. Mercer. She came in often, always quiet. She watched the street more than the shelves. Details not previously emphasized. The witness had not described fear, only focus. She was noticing something long before anyone realized it needed to be noticed. The investigator paused, sensing the shift. This was not about a single moment but accumulation. Patterns forming like sediment layers, slow, steady, undeniable. The journal's later entries altered tone, still calm but abbreviated. May 4. 2 men today, same folder. May 6. Recording times no longer sufficient, must map routes. Her handwriting angled slightly now, not urgent but compressed by purpose. The investigator's gloved fingertip traced lightly under the lines, almost like reading Braille. Elara had assembled a quiet architecture of observation, one piece at a time. A creak from the corridor, old building settling or memory shifting. The file from evidence shelf C contained street scans, bus schedule logs, rental car records, delivery routes. At the time, they had seemed unconnected. Now, with the journal as key, their alignment sharpened. The investigator spread them out on the floor, knees touching concrete. Lines of ink across City District 9. Arrows pointing not at her but at pathways around her. A network, not a chase. She was not tracked, she was tracking. That realization settled without sound, heavier than any verdict. The journal's final dated entry. May 10. Box retrieved. Code phrase confirmed. Will document next phase when certain. No next entry. The investigator exhaled slowly, as though to avoid disrupting her final sentence. What box? What phrase? The cardboard container they had just opened contained no coded content, no logbook beyond her daily insight. But beneath the journal, almost unnoticed, a slim notebook lay flat, blending with the lining. Black cover, no label, unindexed, unlisted. The investigator lifted it gently. Pages of shorthand, not personal, not reflective. Names, locations, cross streets, license plate fragments, office building access logs, badge numbers. Dates aligned with her calm narrative but now fully operational. She had been investigating. Every entry precise, undramatic. She was not a passive figure in some old case, but an active observer assembling a structure unnoticed by official channels. The twist did not arrive with flourish. It revealed itself by logic alone. The photo leaning against the wall, 2 figures behind her. The folder, the repetition, the silent acknowledgement at the bus stop. She had discovered something before anyone knew. There was something to discover. A page near the end of the notebook held a single sentence, written in a quiet, steady hand. If the pattern holds, the connection is internal. The investigator sat back, spine resting against the cold shelf, and let the weight of those words settle. No shock, no outcry, just understanding. Elara had reached the one conclusion no one had wanted to consider, not interference from outside the system, but alignment within it. She had solved what others still treated as unsolved. The dust in the air felt almost respectful now, descending softly around the evidence she left behind. Her work remained intact, uncelebrated but exact. The investigator closed both journals, placed them side by side, and looked once more at her photograph. Elara Brynn, age 27, quiet, methodical, observing until observation became resolution. Justice, if that was what this was, felt procedural, almost mechanical. A chain of forms, signatures, evidence tags. But the human part remained, unresolved in its calm insistence that noticing is sometimes the only act of strength. Outside, the corridor light dimmed another shade, but the storage room stayed still, filled not with closure but with presence. The storage room lights steadied, humming faintly in their old fluorescent rhythm. The investigator remained on the floor, knees pressed into concrete, journals closed but resonant. The calm of the space did not loosen. It tightened, like memory returning with exact coordinates. Elara Brynn's notebook lay between latex gloves and aging paperwork, a quiet center of gravity. 19 years had passed, yet her tone, her collected, unembellished truth remained present. She had not written for dramatic record. She had documented in the language of clarity. That is why the twist worked. She had not been watched. She had been watching, almost academically, almost in anticipation. A second file, long ignored, carried her final workplace records. The investigator opened it with the same care given to brittle glass. Her employment history in 2005 listed her as an office archivist for municipal records, subdepartment logistics. Not highly visible, not high authority, but positioned precisely where traffic, permits, transit logs, and internal security passes converged. She was never in the wrong place. She was exactly within the correct overlap. Pages rustled, delicate. She had logged irregular badge entries, no more than 3 seconds off standard entry time, a difference that would seem nothing to anyone else. But 3 seconds, recorded over 12 days, same ID, same time of day, became a line of near-invisible disruption. She had circled it. Variance must have source. That notation alone was not dramatic, yet the logic beneath it was decisive. A uniform system does not shift without hand or purpose. She had not chased suspicion. She had calibrated it. The investigator moved the street maps closer. In her shorthand notebook, she had marked pathways not where the suspect traveled, but where the altered entry logs intersected with courier routes. Not pursuit, convergence. A dry cough from the doorway. "You found something," the same voice said, not entering tone level. The investigator nodded once. Not something, someone. No more words exchanged. Silence reabsorbed them. The fluorescent hum deepened, a low drone that resembled the memory of long interrogation rooms. Same still air, same paperwork, same practiced patience. The investigator scanned the grid she had drawn nearly 20 years ago, now laying beside Elara's version. They were similar, but hers was cleaner, sharper, without bias. She had not investigated the unknown. She had traced the familiar, the internal. The storage file contained a badge registry. It listed all personnel logged into municipal records during the period of variance. The investigator cross-referenced Elara's shorthand. One name repeated, though spaced, consistent without pattern until aligned with her timing. A single initial. Lar. No surname, no full badge code, just R in her thin, quiet lines. R appeared in her journal too, but only in the background. April 3. R present again, silent acknowledgement. April 12. R traveled opposite route today. Not anxiety, not narrative, observation. The investigator reopened the slim notebook. A later entry near the final page. May 9. R absent from log. Position filled without formal change. This detail stood out. People do not vanish in bureaucracy without a trail. Roles shift on paper even when human presence dissolves in practice. The investigator turned to the official employment ledger, perfect grids, printed clarity, signed monthly. The transition for badge holder R showed no reassignment, no departure, no transfer. Instead, another line, insignificant in font but unmistakable in implication. R merged into internal systems consolidation unit. Merged, not transferred, not replaced, absorbed. Elara had recorded that one word indirectly without nomming it. The investigator had missed its weight the first time. 19 years ago, that phrasing seemed administrative. Now it read as conclusion. She had tracked the integration of a presence that ceased to exist publicly yet continued internally. The movement was not disappearance, it was evolution. The photograph remained leaning against the metal shelf. The blurred figure behind her with the folder, the shadowed eyes, the thin posture, and beside that person, slightly turned, the partial outline of someone holding what appeared to be a municipal ID clip at their belt. Two figures, one external, one internal. The investigator didn't call for assistance. There was no rush. The pace served the truth, Elara's truth. The desk on the left side of the room still held her sealed personal effects. One envelope bore her printed name. The investigator lifted it, opening with quiet exactness. Inside, a single key card, unactivated. Municipal records level access, but blank where identity code should have been registered. This was her piece of evidence, a controlled variable. She had kept it out of system to measure system integrity. Something had failed that measurement. The investigator placed the key card next to the notebooks. 3 silent pillars: observation, logic, verification. Elara had not hoped to solve anything. She had simply followed data. The file beneath the envelope contained her clearance forms. She had been granted temporary access to the consolidation unit for reviewing older registry formats. Routine on paper, unusual in practice. Her clearance had lasted 3 days. After that, her entries in all systems stopped. Not her life, her records. No dramatic exit, no chase. Just erasure at the administrative level, clean and unassuming. The investigator leaned back again, spine pressing against chilled steel. A case once labeled inconclusive now returned with structure. Not solved, but coherent. Elara had captured the moment when pattern converged. She had the final data set. The small twist that shattered 19 years was not an action taken against her, but a protocol shift she had quietly identified. The consolidation unit was formed exactly 2 weeks before her disappearance from internal logbooks. Not her apartment lease, not her phone records, just her administrative presence. The investigator viewed the spatial map again. R's badge variants aligned with courier schedule shifts for the same unit. She followed irregularity to its source, not for drama or defense, but because she recognized symmetry breaking in systems. That was her profession. That was her language. Another sound, not footsteps, just the building breathing, aging beams adjusting. The room did not feel ominous. It felt archival. The investigator looked again at Elara's photo. The slight smile, not wide, not reserved, exact. As if she knew her documentation would outlive narrative. The file edges curled slightly with dryness. Paper heat stored over years finally dissipating under fluorescent steadiness. The journals closed without clasped, clean alignment. The investigator placed both hands on the floor, grounding against the concrete, absorbing the reality. She had solved the wrong case back then. She had looked outward, chasing shadows while Elara had traced structure inward, toward an administrative pulse masked by routine. The keycard caught the light, still blank, still potential. Elara had not been afraid, she had been certain. The investigator rose, slow, precise. Dust shifted, but the air remained clear. The journals were lifted into new evidence bags, sealed with updated tags but without ceremony. She exited the storage room with the same reverence she entered. The door did not close loudly. It clicked with the tone of filing done correctly, not finished, not resolved, simply continued. Yet as the hallway light fell across the sealed bags, something unmistakably human lingered. Not closure, not revelation, just the clarity Elara left behind, a pattern observed, recorded, and handed forward. Justice, if approached, would move on rails of procedure. But truth, quiet and exact, remained in dust, paper, and her handwriting. The corridor extended in muted amber, a line of quiet that matched the investigator's pace. The sealed evidence bags hung evenly at their side, not heavy, just present. 19 years reduced to paper, leather-bound notes, and a single unassigned access card. No spectacle, no conclusion, just continuation. Down 2 flights and across a hall of shuttered windows, the analysis room waited with its own subdued light. The investigator laid the journals on the desk, gloved fingertips barely grazing the plastic seals. The room smelled of ink and static, that scent of records waking after long pause. The computer terminal flickered on, not urgent, just compliant. Elara Brynn's notes opened beside reproduced registry logs, 2 timelines decades apart, now finally aligned with intention. The similarity in line spacing, even from memory, was hard to ignore. She annotated without crowding the page. The investigator did the same now, tracing and transcribing only what belonged to the structure of the case. Variance across 12 days. Badge presence dissolved into internal consolidation. 2 figures behind her in the photograph. A system shift preceded by observation. Not external force, internal transition disguised as workflow. The key card lay on the desk, still blank, a mute variable. It represented not access denied, but access withheld by design. She had held it, noted it, refused to activate it. That was her method: test the gate by not entering, record its reaction, not her movement. She had not wanted to expose anything. She wanted to confirm pattern integrity. The investigator pulled up the archived system database from 2005. The consolidation unit listed no scandal, no irregularity, just a line of departmental compression. Files moved inward, systems nested, personnel absorbed. Elara observed that inward fold with dispassion, documenting not the actors but the motion. She was not tracing a person, she was tracing a process. The man with the folder, the badge carrier known only as R, they were indicators, not antagonists. The fluorescent ceiling buzzed faintly, an auditory reminder of stillness worn thin. The investigator adjusted the map overlay on the monitor. District 9 shift routes, courier trails, entry variance logs, 3 lines intersecting into one administrative corridor. No chase, no danger, just organization tightening its perimeter. The photo, scanned and enlarged, rested on screen. Elara at the bookstall, hat shadow cast across her face, her notebook angled toward the street. Behind her, the man with the folder in profile. Beside him, half-turned, someone wearing a badge clip, not displayed, not hidden. The investigator zoomed slightly, but the resolution refused interpretation. It did not need to name him. Elara never intended to. She recorded enough for logic, not identification. In her final notebook's margin, written with precise strokes, "The system changes shape while appearing still." That was her conclusion, not crisis, not alarm, a structural shift masked as continuity. The investigator exhaled quietly, acknowledging the understated magnitude. She had not been caught in anything. She had simply reached the end of her observational arc. The moment she confirmed the internal movement, her role, archived and temporary, ended. Not erased in violence, just concluded in administration. The evidence remained intact not because it hid, but because no one understood it apart from her. It was all procedural, systemic absorption marked in minutes, access logs, and courier routes. Her disappearance from record was not anomaly. It was consistency. She finished her notation before leaving the journal untouched in that storage room. That was not abandonment. That was catalog. The investigator sealed the findings in updated digital format. No new suspects, no late pursuit, just clarity where haze once persisted, a soft conclusion that did not soothe but clarified. The office air carried no tension now, only the clean quiet of paper aligning with understanding. Elara Brynn, age 27 in 2005, archivist, observer, not witness to wrongdoing but witness to transition. She recorded a mundane evolution of internal structure that others mistook for external pursuit. Her notebook pages had never trembled, her ink never blurred, her voice remained steady in its absence. The investigator stood, hands flat on the desk for a moment longer than necessary. Not sentiment, recognition. The justice system would file this update into its own consolidation, one more quiet record folded into procedural continuity. Nothing cinematic in the resolution, nothing punitive. Some truths do not demand consequence. They demand acknowledgement. The journals were returned to their sealed cases, evidence tags updated with new notes, not conclusions. The storage room would receive them again soon, same dust, same quiet but different understanding. They were no longer cold remnants, they were finished observations. Before leaving, the investigator paused at the door of the analysis room. The photograph remained on the screen. Elara in sunlight, notebook in hand, her presence calm, as if she already knew time would catch up in its slow, administrative rhythm. No need for closure, just accurate record. The lights dimmed a fraction as the computer entered standby. The hallway awaited with familiar restraint, holding both past and present in its muted length. The investigator walked back through it at the same pace as entry, measured, unhurried. The sealed evidence bags made no sound. Their contents were complete in their intention, resolved without spectacle. At the exit, the city air met them, warmer than the archive but equally quiet. Evening had drawn across Phoenix with its usual amber gradient. Streetlights blinked into function, steady, not dramatic. The investigator paused once more, not for memory but for alignment. Elara Brynn had done the same, paused, observed, recorded, handed forward. The twist had not fractured anything. It had clarified a line that was always there, internal, logical, uneventful in its form, but exact in its meaning. Justice in this case did not roar, it filed. Yet something human remained, suspended between dust and ink, in her handwriting and her calm photograph. The simple insistence that noticing matters, even when resolution is not grand but quiet. The investigator carried that stillness with them as they stepped into the evening. Journals sealed, case updated, truth unadorned. A system had shifted, she had seen it.